So welcome. I'm joined by Lizzi Larbalestier, who, as we can see from your background, at least it's daylight at the moment, which is great. Some of our conversations take place in the evening. So welcome, Lizzi. It's lovely to have you here today. Obviously, you're a presenter at the conference next year, which is fantastic. You've presented at the conference many times before because your topics are so inspiring and important. So your topic next year is Environmental Psychology 101. Are you eco-literate? And when I ask myself that question, I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure. So do tell us a bit more about yourself and your presentation.
Okay, so it's always really good to have an excuse to chat with you, Karen, anyway. So love the fact that I'm presenting again. It's always a thrill to join the conference and be really the representative for or one of the representatives for environment, particularly when it comes to Team A NLP. So my name's Lizzi Larbalestier. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm a Blue Health coach as well as an NLP trainer. So Blue Health being the links and connections that we all make to water and how water makes us feel. So I work as a coach, predominantly out on the coast here in Cornwall, and that's working with lots of different modalities, one of which is NLP, but making those links and connections to nature and helping people discover what's going on for them, really bringing nature into the equation and working with NLP throughout that. So, and I work as an eco-centric coach, so the environment is front and center of all our decision making. So the question, are you eco-literate? Lots of people think they are eco-literate, but it's that question of not necessarily are you an eco-activist, but are you really literate when it comes to the ecology of your actions when it comes to the planet?
Which is of course a very important topic. It's one close to our heart, and I'm, as I said, I'm not sure of the answer. I'm not sure if I am eco-literate. I like to think I am, like you just said, but what will delegates take away from your session at the conference?
So it's going to be a mixture of things, really. So as NLP professionals, we quite often put the environment at the bottom of that logical levels model. And obviously it's not a sequence model, but quite often what I find when I'm training practitioners is practitioners want to get up into that values and beliefs and identity space. And they're like, oh yeah, the environment is kind of just a when, where, and with who. And actually when we start to really dive under the surface of it, environment massively impacts everything. So it has such a fundamental impact upon our values and our beliefs and who we are and how we show up in the world. So what delegates will take away is an awareness of what environmental psychology is. So a little bit more of the science background. There's been a lot of research into blue space and green space and how that impacts us psychologically and socially. So there'll be a little bit of science within there, but making those links and connections to how is this relevant for us as NLP professionals. So how does environment thread through every single aspect of our decision making? So taking it beyond just location, and we think about nothing happens without context, but really thinking about what is the fundamental impact that environment has on our coaching, for example. And we'll be starting in the office. We'll be starting even from the learning and insight from environmental psychology that you can bring into your office environment to really notice the sensory elements of what is your environment doing to either help that coaching conversation or hinder it. And that really little tiny things that you could alter that could make a huge difference in your coaching, through to taking your coaching outside, so through to taking your NLP outdoors, and thinking in multidisciplinary terms. So even bringing in things like human geography, so the meanings and connections that we make to some of those really important places within our lives and how that impacts and shapes who we are. So some quite deep discussions and exploring our nature connectedness and really looking at our own practice as professionals for how we can help people gain different insights. And also question, how are they giving back to that space? So really thinking about that whole ecosystem in terms of being symbiotic with nature. So that's predominantly where we'll be exploring.
That's beautiful. And it's silly because it is sort of like a hot trending topic. And yet what you're talking about, that also has that kind of has roots back in feng shui, which has been around for centuries, because feng shui is all about the environment and how it impacts on on our mind, and that sort of cyclical, one affecting the other, impacting on the other, etc., etc. So
completely, and that's a big aspect of environmental psychology, is personal space, and really thinking about and even if we think about those NLP professionals out there who are MBIT coaches, resonance, heart resonance, and the vibe that you're creating, and is there space for you to shine, or are you actually just making that space not actually helpful for exploring? And likewise, if you're really thinking about things like if you've got somebody who's perhaps wanting a little bit of coziness in terms of the conversation that they're having with you, maybe you don't take them out into the middle of a beach where there's no boundaries and there's this great big sky. Maybe you find somewhere that's a little bit more hugger, a bit more cozy. So really exploring how we work with space.
Yeah, which can still be a bit of woodland or something, can't it?
Beautiful.
Just a bit more enclosed. So you can still do that sort of thing outside, just in a different way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's so lovely to hear that it is about that sort of, that link and those personal links with your own environment and what an impact they can make. And
quite often we think of nature as it's been described at post-COVID as a resource, as a health resource to us, and it's like, resource is not a great word. It's a great word when we think about having all the resources that we need from an NLP perspective, but when applied to nature, that kind of implies where you can use it up you can spend it as a resource. It's part of us. So really questioning how we see nature as us being part of nature. Is some of the questions that we want to explore within this session.
That's lovely, and certainly a subject close to my heart, even though I live nowhere near a beach.
But you have some
beach, is it?
No, you have some natural spaces. No, and it's so this is environmental psychology 101. So my skew is blue space, but nature, all aspects of nature. So even exploring urban design and how and where we can find pockets of environments that are really conducive to explore. And environmental psychology, it's not just outdoor space, it's how is the environment impacting the conversation and the interaction that we're having moment to moment.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking at the cushions behind you and thinking, that looks really snuggly and cozy.
I'm in my cozy seaside cushion seat.
Absolutely, very gorgeous. So is there anything that delegates can do beforehand to give them a deeper experience during your session?
Yeah, so I'd say definitely reflect on your practice. So reflect on when you've been booking your clients in, for example. Are you thinking about what role environment plays, or do you consistently work in the same location because you've become a bit habituated to that space? Are you really tailoring location for the individual? And we don't necessarily know what our clients are going to bring moment to moment. We want to be able to be fluid with that, but really thinking about how the space is playing a role with perhaps clients we've worked with for a while. I'd say if it's something that you're interested in, have a look at some of the research, because it'll build and add to the discussion. We'll have Q&A aspects of the discussion anyway. And there is that whole, none of us is as smart as all of us. So it may well be that somebody brings to the table something that I'm not familiar with in terms of the recent research, because who knows what's going to be researched or published in the next few months before the conference. So it's definitely this evolving field. So I'd say, reflect on your own practice and get yourself outdoors as much as you can, because again, quite often we're heading into winter now. I've just come in, I'm actually freezing. I'm just coming off the beach, but quite often everybody does snuggle down, and we've got the shorter days. Think about certainly going through winter. What can you do differently this year than perhaps you did last year? Certainly, because we do still have the freedom to, at this moment in time, we have the freedom to move around. Who knows where we're going with that? But taking time in the day to get a little bit of that daylight, whilst you can, and just notice what that does for your own state and your own practice when it comes to you practicing as a professional.
Yes, well, that's certainly the benefit of having a dog, even during lockdown. Having a dog meant I was allowed to walk the dog.
Exactly. Any excuse.
Exactly. Oh, that's brilliant. So we have got the conference in a virtual environment again next year, which I guess is an environment in itself. How are you planning on adding value in a virtual environment?
So I think the virtual environment is purely the medium. It's kind of, that's the method and the medium of our communicating. So I really want it to feel interactive. I want us to still have discussions, have opportunity for people to participate. Potentially I'll use some video clips because it's one way of illustrating, but I'd also like to, the fact that it is a virtual environment means everybody gets a different location that they're experiencing that conference in. So actually that makes it even more interesting, because I can ask people to reflect on the environment that they're currently in when they're experiencing the conference, and how that's impacting their ability to concentrate, their ability to learn, digest the information. So in one way, from bearing in mind we're talking about environment, the fact that everybody is going to be so subjective in their experience when it comes to the space that they find themselves in, we can utilize that to our advantage to ensure that we can ask some clean questions that are non-environment specific. So and we'll have some polls. We'll use the Hoover app, the various different mechanisms that we've used in the previous conference, enable people to participate so well. That's how I would aim to add value. And
I think that's
virtually.
That's the joy of the virtual environment, is that it's almost like everybody does get an equal opportunity to participate from that perspective. And certainly I know, from observing some of those people who've tended to hang back sometimes in the conference and not be the ones that put their hands up. Suddenly when there's the safety of a screen, those people become a bit more outgoing and willing to interact and participate. So it's fantastic.
I'd also say the fact that it's virtual, you have the option for people to attend your session not live. You have the option for people to rewatch them. And for my types of topics, because my topic is it's always very environment led, it's not necessarily the first thing that somebody's going to choose, because they may well perceive that it's going to be a bit tree huggy. And I'm hippie as much as anybody else. I love that, but I also love the science. So I think there's that aspect of, it may well be that you conflict with timings of other people's topics and you want to attend everything. So that's one of the things also that's really great about it being virtual, is people have got the opportunity to explore as and when suits them at a time that's suitable for them, and experience all of the conference.
Absolutely. And with 8 streams running next year, there's certainly going to be plenty to explore. And it is lovely that, as you say, everybody gets the opportunity to explore all of it. Which is fantastic for you as a presenter, that because in theory that means that more people do get to enjoy every topic that's on offer, and it's I
am an activist as well as an advocate for the environment. So again, if somebody doesn't, that's not how they don't identify themselves with being an environmental activist. It's that opportunity for people to dip in and out and recognize that this is really relevant for everybody. This is about our NLP practice, and how do we make the most of the fact that we have this environment that's so rich in insight that it can offer us. And at the same time, hopefully we then do also look after that space. So that's kind of my main message, is also we do want to look after the space.
Absolutely and the same as one would with any space. And those things, they're the things that we don't sometimes consider, is that actually it's a matter of course that we might go around and do our hoovering and stuff like that. It's okay. So what's different? It's the same sort of thing. It's just the next leveling up of looking after our space.
100%. And we because you did a lot of work at the last conference that was a face-to-face, the last conference that was a face-to-face conference. You did so much work, and you've done so much work in the NLP offices. I don't think you were particularly non-environmentally aware, but you've actually gone up to that next level of being really mindful about carbon footprint, that side of things. Is that guardianship is ideally part of how all of us show up, whether it's the front of mind thing, or whether it's just part of how you go about your day-to-day life.
And I think it's the same as everything. It's playing our part. I would love to do what you do some of the time, possibly not on a chilly November day like today. However, living in Hertfordshire, we're about as far away from the coast as we possibly could be. So it is doing what we can to play our part. So yes, it doesn't involve the sea, but one day.
And you've got rivers and streams, and it is all to me, it's all ocean. It's all Dr. Sylvia Earle's got a brilliant quote, there's no green without blue. So green space is still blue space, because it wouldn't be green and lush if there wasn't water. through it. And that's it's a very ecospheric way of exploring, how everything is distilled within nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my element, if people believe in such things, my element, I'm water through and through. Every single Chinese element, etc., is all water. So I might be landlocked in terms of where I live, but there's still a lot of water flowing through there somewhere.
Yeah, and that is for now. You may well end up at the sea.
We're working on it.
Cool.
So what does as I said, you've been to the conference and you were so influential with the decisions that we made in the last in-person conference. You really helped us and supported us and the hotel with making some very sort of ecological and environmentally friendly decisions. But what does the NLP International Conference mean to you?
So I love the fact that you see people's faces, even if it's virtually, you see people's faces that have been around for a long time. So you see lots of friends, people that I consider friends, their peers within the NLP world. It's an opportunity to celebrate and come together and celebrate together and really have that professional element to our NLP, so that we're learning from each other. I love that, the fact that everybody's sharing their perspective and we're all learning from each other, and there's not one session that you'd watch and come away or attend and come away and think I learned nothing from that. There's always new insights and new perspectives, so I really enjoy that. I enjoy being of service, so I enjoy the fact that you're offering some insight as well. And I also enjoyed the fact that, as your envoy for environment and ocean, that I'm privileged the fact that I've had the opportunity to speak so often, always with that flag, waving that flag. Yeah. And that to me shows that you guys are serious about the environment being something that needs to be within our conscience day to day. That's part of our mode of operation as NLP professionals. So there's loads that it offers.
Yeah.
Perspective. And then meeting new people, meeting people that you never normally would come into contact with. So there's those old friends that you haven't seen for ages, but then there's new friends as well.
Absolutely, and with it being virtual, there's an even greater opportunity to meet those people that may be the other side of the world and wouldn't be able to attend the in-person conference for all sorts of different reasons.
Exactly. As much as anybody else, I really am looking forward to when we can all be in the same room together. There's a very big argument for the positive impact from a carbon perspective. Yeah. from us being virtual.
Yes, well, absolutely. And funnily enough, we're just exploring at the moment the possibility of, the conference obviously is virtual, and maybe on a smaller scale, what we might be able to do this next year is hold the NLP Awards as a live in-person event. Yeah. It's smaller, it's more compact and all that sort of thing. So we're just exploring those options at the moment, because then we really do have the best of both worlds.
I think so. I think there is a sweet spot, isn't there? There's that point in between where we still get that connection that it's only possible when you're in the same room resonating. Same, it's like I can take somebody to the beach virtually. It's a representation of going to the beach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's wonderful, and as I said, we are advocates of the work that you do, and very appreciative of the work that you do. So thank you, Lizzi. Thank you.
Worries.
Your presentation is on Sunday the 22nd of May next year, 2022. It's at 11 a.m. BST, because we'll be in summertime by then. And exactly. As it gets darker as we speak. And it's a 90-minute presentation, so plenty long enough to have a dive into, no pun intended, have a dive into what you're going to be talking about. So really awesome. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Lizzi.
No worries, look forward to it. Thanks for having me.